Good morning, everyone. Honorable Principal and Chairperson, IQSC, Dr. Sister Jyoti, Honorable Vice Principal, Sister Shobha, Honorable Resource Person for the session, Dr. Shreya Bhattacharji, IQSC Coordinator, Dr. Emma Seraphim, CPE Coordinator, Dr. Devjani Roy, faculty members of various colleges and universities, and my dear colleagues. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Shreya Roy, your host and moderator for the program. On behalf of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Nirmala College, I'm delighted to welcome you all to the inaugural session of this 3-day faculty enrichment program on COVID-19 and life beyond challenges and issues, sponsored under UGC CPE scheme. Enrichment of teachers is an important aspect of academic excellence for any educational institution, and IQAC is committed to ensure that this objective be efficiently met through such programs. From being a college with potential for excellence, along with numerous other achievements to our credit, our success is a result of a dedicated team spirit under the continuous guidance of a visionary and efficient leader who motivates us throughout in all our endeavors. May I now invite our Honorable Principal and Chairperson IQSC, Dr. Sister Jyoti, for her inaugural address to mark the onset of this 3-day faculty enrichment program.
Thank you, Sri Rupa. Respected Vice Principal, Sister Shobha, members of IQAC, and the organizers of a 3-day faculty enrichment program, Dr. Shreya Bhattacharji, the esteemed resource person of the first session, respected HODs of various departments, Nirmala College, Ranchi, faculty members of Nirmala College, professors, teachers, faculty members of universities and colleges, and all dear participants from far and wide. Wish you all a very warm and blessed good morning to you. I thank the Almighty for giving us this graceful day with numerous blessings. I feel overwhelmed today to see the entire Nirmala fraternity meeting at this virtual platform after a long period of time due to COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdowns. Indeed, it is a matter of privilege and honor to witness a 3-day faculty enrichment program being organized by IQAC team Nirmala College Ranchi, affiliated to Ranchi University Ranchi, a college with potential for excellence, accredited by NAC with grade A. I dare to say that Nirmala College is the single recipient of the status of CPE, a college with potential for excellence in Jharkhand during the 12th 5-year plan period of UGC. The 3-day faculty enrichment program is being sponsored under UGC CPE scheme. We are well aware of the fact that the entire world is affected by the deadly virus. The pandemic COVID-19 has made the world to come to a standstill. The scenario has changed from moving out for work and resting at house to a corporate mindset of work from home. The present scenario has changed our lives too, to its utmost. The paradigm shift from classrooms to our rooms being converted to digital rooms is a necessity for propagating teaching learning. The online teaching and e-learning resources are the alternative that we are envisaging today. COVID-19 and subsequent lockdowns gave birth to this innovative and creative idea to bring all the academicians and faculty members to this platform for fruitful deliberations on the topic COVID-19 and life beyond challenges and issues. The very relevant topic indeed. I am sure that the deliberations during these 3 days will certainly help us to explore numerous ways and innovative methods in teaching learning process and carrying out our life beyond. I am sure that we shall have an effective learning and knowledge sharing. I pray and seek the blessings of the Almighty for the fruitful deliberations and uninterrupted support of network. Have a pleasant time. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Thank you for your encouraging words. Surely we are going to have a very fruitful program. N- May I now invite our dynamic coordinator of CPE, Dr. Devjani Roy, to present a brief account of our journey so far in pursuit of academic excellence with the award of CPE status. As this program is is sponsored under UGC CPE scheme, may we have a little briefing on that. Dr. Devjani Roy.
Unmute.
Good morning to one and all. Honorable Principal, dignitaries, all the participants present here, a word or two about UGC CPE. The UGC introduced a scheme for the colleges during the 10th plan, which was continued even during the 11th plan. A college selected under the CPE scheme is provided substantial funds to improve and strengthen its infrastructure that would help it in attaining further higher academic standards. Nirmala College was granted the CPE status in 2016. One of the parameters for assisting colleges under the CPE scheme is retraining of teachers, and it is with this objective that the IQAC of Nirmala College decided to conduct a faculty enrichment program, keeping in mind the unusual situation that the world is facing today. This faculty enrichment program, funded by the UGC CPE, is an attempt to bring the academia together on a virtual platform and to promote a discussion on the socio-economic needs of the nation as per Objective 3.5 of CPE guidelines. I convey my deepest sense of gratitude to the funding agency, that is UGC CPE, and to our principal, Dr. Sister Jyoti, under whose stewardship the IQAC has been able to conduct this FEP. A word of gratitude for the entire college, the management, the IQAC team, and the CPE team for having actualized this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Devjani Roy. Now, before we start the session with our presentation by resource person, may I have a little announcement for the participants of our live streaming session. Since the meeting room of Zoom is full now, may I request you all to kindly join us on the live stream on YouTube, which is on right now. And while our resource person will be having our presentation, the chat room will be open for you, so you can post your queries over there. And we will take up the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So requesting you all to post only your queries, the questions that you would like to ask our resource person after her presentation. Thank you, everyone. May I now request Dr. Afreen Khan, IQSA member and HOD Department of English, to kindly introduce our resource person for the session. Dr. Afreen Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Shirupa. Very good morning to our Honorable Principal and Chairperson IQAC, Dr. Sister Jyoti, our esteemed resource person, Dr. Shreya Bhattacharji, coordinator and members of IQAC, faculty members of Nirmala College, and the participants of today's faculty enrichment program. On behalf of IQAC Nirmala College, I deem it a great honor and privilege to welcome and introduce Dr. Shreya Bhattacharji, our esteemed resource person, for the first session of day one of the 3 days online UGC CPE sponsored faculty enrichment program organized by IQAC Nirmala College on COVID-19 and life beyond challenges and issues. Dr. Shreya Bhattacharji is Associate Professor in the Department of English Studies, Central University of Jharkhand, Ranchi. Her academic interests include post-colonial studies, especially African, Afro-American, Caribbean, queer, and women's writings, border and partition studies, and contemporary literary theories. He has published widely and has been invited to numerous conferences in India as also in the United States, France, Hungary, South Africa, and South Korea. Formerly a civil services officer, she also nurtures a keen interest in human rights, tribal, and gender issues. Shreya ma'am will be speaking on the topic the pandemic, the XX chromosome, and the new normal. Ma'am, may I request you to enrich us with your views?
Thank you, Dr. Afrin, for the kind introduction. Respected Dr. Sister Jyoti, Principal Nirmala College, various faculty members of Nirmala College, participants for today, ladies and gentlemen. I feel privileged to be sharing this platform with you today. My mode of presentation would be audio visual. I will be doing a PowerPoint presentation, but as I have told Dr. Shrirupa yesterday, I will also be showing you 2 small videos. Please feel free to ask me your questions or give me your suggestions and comments at the end of the presentation. I would like to do screen sharing, Dr. Shrirupa, if that is okay.
Yes, Dr. Shreya, we have enabled screen sharing feature, so you
Right.
can comfortably share. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, the screen is clearly visible, Dr. Shreya.
Okay. Right. So today I will be speaking on the pandemic, the double X chromosome, and the new normal. Now, to begin, and I'm glad that I have been invited by a college managed by women, very talented, very gifted women. It makes it easier for me. You see, the pre-pandemic, pre-COVID era was no bed of roses for women across continents, cultures, religion, class, ethnicity, nationalities, you name it. In fact, every inch of space that we have today has been won after immense struggle, a lot of struggle. To illustrate that, I would like to show you this shot, which is of women singing and performing during the demonstration of the very famous song and dance sequence, which is called A Rapist in Your Path, which began in Chile last year in November and spread across the entire world like a wildfire. What I would also like to do now is to show you the actual video of this feminist anthem. Were you able to hear that?
We can't see the screen you are sharing, Dr. Shreya.
Right. I will
We are seeing
just
your video only, Raj. Yeah.
right, right. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, the screen is visible.
Can you hear it also?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, yes. Yes. So if you have seen that video, you understand what I'm talking about. You know, that life is no bed of roses now, and life was no bed of roses in the what is now called the pre-pandemic era. And you have seen how these protests spread all over the world. And I'm talking only about November and December 2019. The pandemic was about to begin. Now, these women whom we saw just now, they are the women who have a voice, who are capable of protesting in the streets of the major cities across the world. What I would now like to show you, from there, I would like to bring you straight to the state where we are located in Jharkhand. And I would like to show you one small film, very small, and then I will actually begin with my discussion. Is it visible?
Yes, Dr. Shreya, it's visible.
Yes. Is it audible too now?
Yeah.
Yes. Kindly take a look at this small video. It is a film which is also a song.
হায় রে দেবী রে দুর্গা দকে নডঙে নারে দেবী রে চেলা দকিনি বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় বেলে বুট রে কি নডঙে নারে নড়া তালা রে কিনি বাহেরে নারে হায় রে দেবী রে দুর্গা দক্ষিণ অডঙে নারে দেবী রে চেলা দক্ষিণী বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় বেল বুট রে কি নডঙে নারে নড়া তালা রে কিনি বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় নিচে লাগি দক্ষিণ ডঙে নারে নিচে লাগি দক্ষিণী বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় দেশে দাঁড়ানা লাগি দক্ষিণে অডঙে নারে সমসাঙ্গারে লাগি দক্ষিণী বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় দেবী রে দুর্গা দক্ষিণ ডঙে নারে আই নম কাজল দক্ষিণী বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় চেড়ে লাগি দক্ষিণ ডঙে নারে চেড়ে লাগি দক্ষিণী বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় দেশে লাগি দক্ষিণ ডঙে নারে দিশম লাগি দক্ষিণী বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় নৌকা দিশমতে কিনি অডঙে নারে নৌকা দিশমতে কিনি বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় শুনু মুসিন্দুরু গুরু হো দেশে নাড়া গইমে নিখাড়ি খুঁটিয়াতে রে দিশ বনমে হায় রে হায় দেবী দুর্গা দক্ষিণী সেটেরে গদমা আই নম কাজল দক্ষিণী নো পেলে গদমা হায় রে হায় দিলাসে দেবী দুর্গা হয় লিকাতে দিলাসে আই নম কাজল ভাণ্ড লিকাতে হায় রে হায় নটাঙি জু পেছে সেরে মা সাঙ্গিনি খন গুরুল হিজু পেছে নতমা পাতালা খন হায় রে হায় দেবী রে দুর্গা দক্ষিণ ডঙে নারে দেবী রে চেলা দক্ষিণী বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় বেল বুট রে কিন ডঙে নারে নড়া তালা রে কিনি বাহেরে নারে হায় রে হায় নড়া তালা রে কিনি বাহেরে নারে হায় রে ninoda atalare kini bahere na are.
Now, the film that I showed you is a short film by Niranjan Kumar Kujur. And this was shown to you just to bring us back to the ground reality as to what life is for women, for many women across the world, across our country, and especially in our state of Jharkhand. And what we saw in this film through just one song is the cycle of one day which repeats itself endlessly. Now, from there, we move on to what happens then if that was the pre pandemic era, where on the one hand you see peripheral women, and on the other hand you see women protesting in all major cities of the world. If that was the pre pandemic era, what then is the status of the double X chromosome or women in the pandemic era? Now, this is something which is very close to my heart. This is something which disturbs me greatly. And what I speak today is about issues which are deeply problematic. That is, the sufferings of women, they continue to aggravate, unfortunately, during the pandemic era. As my favorite Romanian German Nobel laureate 2000, Herta Muller would have said, that at times it seems that the pandemic era has become a life of everyday terror for many women. Now, if we look at this, graph, which talks about the 7 major issues that are affecting women and girls in the COVID-19 pandemic, you see that it is divided into 3 major areas. One is the health and well-being, within which is included the issues of domestic violence, like pregnancy. On the other hand, you have the healthcare system where there are the issues of most healthcare workers being women, and also access to health services. In the third sector, you look at the economic issues where you have this burden of domestic care work at home, higher rates of job losses, loss of financial independence, etc. What I'll do now is to talk about these issues one by one. The foremost and the most problematic thing about this pandemic era is the issue of violence against women. It is very tragic, it is very worrying. That is, sexual, physical, domestic violence and exploitation of women has increased manifold. And unfortunately, this spike is seen in both developed and developed countries. And it is across religion and class divisions. It is interesting to note that during the Ebola crisis, which affected mostly the West African countries between 2013 and 2016, a similar spike in violence against women was also observed. Now, if we look at these statistics, they are kind of spine-chilling statistics. You see, if you talk about countries such as Jordan, Italy, Brazil, Germany, they report that violence against women had increased 3 times during the first week of the lockdown period. And if you look at the cases of domestic violence against some major countries, look at the increase. In United States, it's 20%. In India, it is 50%. In Turkey, it is 38.2%. In South Africa, it is 37%. In the United Kingdom, it is 25%. In Australia, look at the statistics, it is 75%. In France, it is 32%. I have just portrayed it in a graphical form so that it is easier for us to comprehend the increase in the cases of domestic violence during the lockdown period. It is something about which each one of us who is a thinking, sensitive individual, we need to think about it. Now, the UN chief at the moment, Antonio Guterres, he has repeatedly warned against the horrifying global surge in domestic violence. The UN chief talking about the horrifying surge in domestic violence. Worse, he goes on to say that many women under lockdown face violence where they should be safest, that is, in their own houses. And he has appealed to all the governments across the world to put women's safety first as they respond to the pandemic. So we can see that the UN is worried, deeply worried. Now, if we look at the statistics from India, this is the statistics taken from the National Commission for Women. In the first week of March, before the pandemic lockdown was announced, they had received 160 complaints. In the last week of March, since the imposition of the lockdown, there were 275 complaints, of which 69 were cases of domestic violence. And I'm talking about only those cases which are reported. In a country like India, you see, the majority of the cases would go unreported. And as the chairperson of the Women Commission says, that the complaints that they have received are only via email. Now, we can ourselves understand that how many women in the rural areas, which forms the bulk of the country, would have access to phones and emails and WhatsApp, you name it. If we move a little further, look at the situation even in the developed countries. In France, what does the government of France say? The government of France says that if a woman thinks that she is facing a threat to her life from her partner, if the domestic violence issue has gone to such an extent, the government says that please leave your home and come to a hotel and stay there, the government will foot the bill. How bad the situation can be for the government to say such a thing. In France, Spain, and Italy, women who are facing violence at home have been asked to approach the nearest pharmacy, because pharmacies are open and pharmacies are within easy access, and they can give an excuse and go to the pharmacy and to use code words there. Why? Because the pharmacy people have been trained to alert the police so that help would reach the cornered woman. You will be surprised to know, or maybe many of you are following the news also, domestic violence shelter offices in these countries have been opened next to the grocery outlets so that women can go there to purchase their grocery and seek help from the domestic violence shelter. And from there itself, they will be taken to the shelter, because there is no question of going back home. Because if you have escaped and come, you can move from there directly to the shelter. The governments have have even granted permission to women to break windows, doors, walls, whatever necessary to protect themselves from their predators. Now, if this is the condition of countries, developed countries such as France, Spain, Italy, we can well imagine what the condition would be in a country like India and in developing countries in general, where there is no such help available, and a woman in the rural areas, like we saw in the film, would have very rare access to even a mobile phone. So reaching out is a big issue. So what would be the situation of the women in countries like ours? We can well imagine. Now, if we look at women like us, working women, middle class women, in developing and developed countries both, these women are facing a lot more of burden, because uh, you know in addition to your office work, which you are compelled to do from home, you also have to take care of the domestic and care work, cooking, cleaning, all these things. And in most cases, because of the scare of the disease, the domestic helps are no longer allowed. Moreover, the children would be at home, so the brunt of online classes, guiding them during these online classes would also fall on the women. Husbands also working from home, mostly expecting to be waited upon. And if there are elderly in-laws, elderly family members, they also expect to be cared for. And in addition to that, you have your own, if you are a working woman, you have your own work to do. Now, I will suggest all of you to please watch Nandita Das's movie. Listen to her, which talks about, and this has been produced in collaboration with the National Commission for Women, where she talks about a woman who is at home and has a demanding child and a demanding husband, and who gets a repeated phone call from a woman in distress. Right? What to do? Now, what happens in these cases, and this is how I like to look at it, is the myth of the superwoman. You know, you tell the woman, yes, you are good, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and more. And so the woman exerts herself. In Bengal, we have this myth of the Dashabhuja Durga. You have 10 hands, and so you do an immense lot of work while most of the family sits and relaxes. Now, if we look at women and health, there are several issues which are deeply disturbing. One is this increased, this is what doctors are warning, and the statistics also show that there is an increased risk of unwanted pregnancies. And obviously, in this pandemic time, there is a high risk of infection for both the mother and the child. And there is an increased risk of pregnancy related deaths. These are facts which cannot be ignored. If we look at women in developing countries like ours, with the pandemic, there is reduced access to vital healthcare services. And as it is the healthcare services are poor, and the pandemic makes it worse. And treatment for COVID-19 for many women, especially the rural poor women, it is almost inaccessible. In developed countries, in most developed countries, you find a large population of elderly women who have outlived their husbands, who are alone, more at risk, and who are not very savvy with digital devices. So they are also kind of left at the mercy of the uh, social service system, neighbors, and so on. Now, most of the frontline health force across both developing and developed countries are women. And obviously they are at very high risk. If we look at the cleaning fraternity, mostly women, the nursing fraternity, mostly women, and many women are also medical professionals, doctors. So they are all at very high risk. If we look at uh, women and economy, how it's going to how women are going to be affected economically. So obviously we understand that women are going to experience a higher rate of job cuts. This is obvious because we cannot ignore the fact that we live in a patriarchal society. You know, whether you live in New York or whether you live in Ranchi or whether you live in London, it is a patriarchal society. So the first slash would come upon women. They would be the first to lose their jobs. They would be the first to face the pay cuts. That is one. The second thing is, if this happens, obviously you lose your financial independence. If you lose your financial independence, your future prospects are also dark, and this is happening, and this will continue depending on how long the intensity of COVID-19 persists. And obviously, the worst sufferers are going to be the working class women. If we look at the Indian context, the working class women, especially the migrant workers, they are the worst hit. And I was just looking at this news report, and it kind of chilled my soul, to see, and they have done a survey, and it was published in the Times of India. They say that 85% of domestic helps across cities in India, uh, and they're mostly women, they have not been paid their wages during the lockdown months. You see, where do these women work? They work in homes like ours, and they have not been paid their wages. And so we see this migration of these people, men and women both, to their native places. And I personally think that it is a matter of great shame that the city could never be a home to these people. A city, our cities of which we are so proud, they could never be inclusive. They could never be home. Someone who has been working in the city, a woman from any small village who has been working in the city for 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, continues to be a migrant. And the outbreak of a disease leaves her penniless, and she is compelled to go to her native village and seek succor there. What can be sadder? But this is the situation. Now, if we move further on this issue, you see, women migrant workers, once they return to their villages, I think that most likely they would never work again. Uh, Very, very doubtful whether they will be able to come back to work again. If that is so, then their resources, the resources of the family, becomes very limited. Uh, and it is the woman who is responsible for the everyday food, for the everyday needs of the family. So how would she manage with such limited resources? This is something which we have to think about. The next point, and I think this is very important, and all of you would agree with me, that in both developing and developed countries, across class and religion or nationality, ethnicity, whichever divisions, women are also going to bear the brunt of the anger and frustration of their partners when they suffer job losses or pay cuts. This anger, this frustration, almost always is is shown upon the woman in the house, and sometimes even more pathetically, on the children. This is what happens. Somebody has to bear the brunt of your anger and frustration because you have lost your job. And who's going to do it? It is the woman in the house, or sometimes the poor child, who's going to bear the brunt of your anger and frustration. Now, if we look at women and polity, the need of the hour is specially tailored sensitive policies for women. But as we well know, that in most countries across the world, women are not policy makers and they have almost no part in decision making. But at this point of time, we find that groundbreaking work has been done by those women who are heading countries in at this point of time. And this I have taken from this article, When Women Lead, the Virus Loses by G.Y. Gopinath. And on your right, you can see the photograph of Jacinda Ardern, the PM of New Zealand, who has been doing exemplary work during the pandemic. And we also see that Taiwan, Iceland, Finland, Norway, Germany, and also Denmark, they are at the moment being led by women leaders. And these are the countries which have done exceptionally well because these women, these women have been very sensitive to these issues and they have taken very quick decisions as to how to control the spread of the disease. Now, from here, I would like to move on to certain issues which have really bothered me and which I would like to share with you. What about these kind of women, women in the peripheries? For example, the women in the red light areas. We all know that they are there, they exist. Although the so-called within double quote civilized discourse kind of tries to erase them, make them invisible. But what about these women? They are there in every city, every town. What about them? You see, they are faced with just two options, and both these options are equally brutal. Should they die of hunger or should they die of the disease? Who thinks about them? You know, these are the issues which we need to think about. What then is the new normal for women? And does living with corona also imply living with violence? Is that the new normal that we are going to face? That you live with the fear of the disease and you also live with fear of violence at home, a life of everyday terror? Does it imply living as a lesser human being? As Chinua Achebe, the noted Nigerian novelist, had said, that just as the African continues to remain the junior brother of the white, is that how a woman is supposed to live in the pandemic era, in the new normal, as a lesser human being? This makes me ask a very uncomfortable question, but I'm compelled to ask it. That if the violence experienced by women on the streets in the pre-pandemic era has come right home in the pandemic era, who then is the predator? Is the predator the man or is the predator COVID-19? As thinking individuals, we need to ponder about this question. Why has the violence now come home? Why are so many women across the world suffering? Why is the UN having to request every regime across the world to put the issue of women's safety first? Why? Why is there a global surge in violence against women? In conclusion, there are a few things that I would like to say. What would happen in the so far hypothetical vaccinated post pandemic era, assuming that a vaccine is soon found? Would we have learned our lesson? Uh, this is time for us, for everybody, time to think, time to deliberate, time to do some soul searching. Would we have learned our lesson? And would our mindsets have changed? This is a question which I would like to ask you. When say the vaccine is found, say social distancing is no longer applied, and by the government, in that case, would women be safe on the streets? Or, and this is my fear, believe me, I am a very positive person, but still this is my fear, that would perversion skyrocket? And would no woman be safe either in the street or at home? This is the question which bothers me. And would, and I fear this will happen, will there be an increase in cases of both female feticide as also femicide? Less money, more violence. Will that result in the woman being aborted in the womb and also the women being killed later, both female feticide and femicide? Is this what would happen? You see, the mask has become the new normal. The mask is supposed to guard your nose and your mouth. I was talking with a friend of mine who is a medical practitioner, and she said something very disturbing. She said that the mask should be, should only cover your mouth and nose, but it seems that it's covering your eyes too. And I was reminded of Gandhari, and the fact that she had blindfolded herself. And I thought that yes, are we blindfolding ourselves? Are we confining ourselves within our sanitized ivory towers so that we need not look beyond, need not reach out? It's like this, that I have blindfolded myself. My world is right, you know. And so I would like to live within my ivory tower and not reach out. The question is not if you are safe. The question is also whether your domestic help is safe. The question is also whether your students are safe. The question is also whether your neighbors are safe. You need to reach out. We need to change our mindset. Will that happen? This is what we need to think about. Finally, I would also like to say that it is what I am talking about is not against women, not against men either. I am talking about creating a normal where not only women would be against violence, but men will be also against violence. And I know many men who are against violence, who have also been battling this kind of violence. And in fact, there are such organizations all over, Men Against Violence. What I am trying to tell is that this should become the norm. This should become the normal. This should not be the exception. That's how I would like to look at the new normal. In conclusion, I could not resist this. In conclusion, I would like to just read out one small quotation from Irfan Khan's famous movie, Madadi. It is a very interesting movie because it has two endings. One ending which the protagonist does not like and the narrative voice does not like. So there is a backtracking, and then there is a second conclusion, which is a happier conclusion. And so this is what he says: बाज चूजे पे झपटा उड़ा ले गया, कहानी सच्ची लगती है लेकिन अच्छी नहीं लगती. बाज पलटवार हुआ, कहानी सच्ची नहीं लगती है लेकिन कसम बहुत अच्छी लगती है. What I'm trying to say, in other words, is that it is up to us whether we can create a new normal, a new narrative. The time that has been given to us is a time for soul searching. Now, the choice is with us whether we become better human beings and reach out more, or whether we confine ourselves to our own ivory towers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shreya, for such a wonderful session. We will now take up a few questions that have come while the presentation was going on. The first question here for you is from Dr. Anjana Singh. Dr. Shreya, we discussed problems, but where are the practical solutions, especially with regards to the marginal women as sex worker, housemaids, and vegetable vendors. Kindly share a point or two that might lead us to finding solutions.
See, whenever I'm asked for this kind of questions, I am reminded of Chinua Achebe's novel *Ant Hills of the Savannah*, where the lead character Ikem says that the job of the speaker is to give the headache, not to give the prescription. You see, there is no one solution for any of these problems. I am a very practical person. How I look at it is this way: if each one of us does our little bit, it adds up to a lot. At this point of time, it is not expected that we will go out and do, but at least we can do what is possible within our own home, isn't it? At least we can see that those who are associated with us, the extended family, they are happier. At least we can uh, counsel the students who are going through depression. These are the things which we can do. If each one does a little bit, it gradually improves the situation. I'm afraid there are no ready-made solutions for these kind of things. One has to improvise, one has to devise, one can perhaps help create self-help groups, but it goes one at a time. I hope it answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Shreya. Uh, there's another question from Dr. Debjani Roy. Women are commodified through ages. The mindset has to change. Don't you think that men should be brought up differently? Can that be a new normal?
Of course, I wish and I pray that it becomes so. Of course, there is a lot of problem in the way men are brought up, and that is where most women, even without their knowing, act as agents of patriarchy. That is how they bring up their sons. It is women who bring up their sons, right? And that is how they are taught. So obviously, as I told you, the changes that we want to see are the changes that we have to bring. If we change the way if I change the way my son thinks, obviously he will change the mindset of 5 of his friends. That's how it works. That's how it works. I absolutely agree with you. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So these are the few questions that we have got. Requesting participants to post your questions if you have anything to ask to our resource person regarding this session, regarding the presentation that she had given so far. The chat box is open for you to type the messages, type the questions. Okay, so we have another question from Dr. Sumant Kumar Jha. Is judiciary and NGO having no role to improve their lot? Can we not voice against the immoral practices? What restricts men?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Is judiciary and NGO having no role to improve their lot? Can we not voice against the immoral practices? What restricts men?
It is it is for men to say, what restricts them, more than for women to say. But of course, there are so many. These are such convoluted and intertwined issues. As I told you that there are many men who are voicing, and it is not the question of a man voicing or a woman voicing. It is the question of any, and that's what I tried to stress, that any right thinking individual, any sensitive individual has to speak up about these issues. If you see what is happening in your home, it is your duty to speak up. Otherwise, tell me, how is it that 85% of domestic helps have not been paid their wages during the lockdown period? Tell me, is this the country where we want to live? So these are issues, which each one of us need to raise, and that is why we as educators, we have a huge role to play here. And that's why I'm glad that this kind of a platform has been opened for us, where we can think and debate upon these issues, and try to formulate certain practical solutions at the ground level, each in our small little world, trying to improve.
Thank you, Dr. Shreya. There's one more question from Paramita Ghosh. Can the situation be better
Yes.
for women after the ending of COVID-19?
I really hope and pray that it be so. But as I told you, I have my fears. If most of us are able to use this time to soul search and some change of attitude happens, then good. And that is why I told you about Madadi and two possible endings to the same story. But that depends upon us, how we want to change it. If a majority of us soul search, maybe things will improve. But if a majority of us are only waiting for the pandemic to pass so that we can return to our former selves, then I'm sorry to say that it can be worse. In fact, I have a fear that the pandemic has brought out both, the human in us as also the beast in us. So it entirely depends on us how we will formulate the new normal. Of course, I pray that it be a better one.
Okay. Any more questions? Otherwise, we would wind up the session. It was such a great presentation, Dr. Shreya, and we are getting nice compliments even on the live streaming on YouTube. No more queries. The queries that are still visible here is actually the ones that you have already answered, the repetitive ones only. So I'm not taking up those. Okay, so one more question from Dr. Rashmala Sahu, and then we can wind up the session. How to deal with mental health issues of children, women, and elderly at home?
Yes, actually, that is also a very major issue, how to deal with this mental health issues. In fact, I was in a platform with a very well-known oncologist who was suggesting certain very interesting things. He said that, how do we keep ourselves well in these difficult times? And obviously, there are some simple answers. For example, engage yourself in creative activities, whatever makes you happy, be it books, be it travel videos, be it cooking, be it gardening, be it chatting with your friends. And also, we need to remember that, at least in this pandemic, you have your cell phone with you. Most of us, at least in this class of society, we do. You have your laptop, you have your phone, you have Facebook, you have Insta, you have 24 hours internet to keep you engaged. But just think about what must have happened during the Spanish flu 100 years back, for example, or what would have happened during the Black Plague, for example, when these things were also not as there. So you have to find your own ways of creativity. And just to go back to what the doctor had said, he said one more important thing, that please do not watch the news at night, because that is what will make you even more depressed, before going to sleep. And on waking up in the morning, the first thing we do is to catch up on the news and see how many cases, how many deaths. So please don't do that. That news will catch up with you. You try to catch up on certain other positive news. Use this time productively and creatively. Spend time with friends, spend time with family virtually, and catch up. That is what I can suggest. The rest, of course, it's for a psychiatrist or medical health professionals to suggest.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful presentation. And may I now request our IQAC member, Dr. Afreen Khan, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Please, okay. On behalf of IQAC Nirmala College, Ranchi, I deem it a great opportunity to extend my heartfelt thanks and deep sense of gratitude to our Honorable Principal and Chairperson IQAC, Dr. Sister Jyoti, Sister Your dynamic leadership has been a constant source of encouragement and support for us. I also thank our honorable resource person, Dr. Shreya Bhattacharji, for her wonderful and excellent presentation on the pathetic situation of women during the COVID-19 era. Ma'am, you are absolutely correct. The sufferings of women have increased manifold. There has been a spike in cases of sexual, physical, domestic violence and exploitation across religion and class division. The COVID-19 era has helped to nurture the myth of the superwoman Dosho Durga. Thank you, ma'am, for your enlightening views. This is the time for soul searching and deliberations, ma'am. You are absolutely correct. The need of the hour is to be the change that we wish to see in the world. Thank you, ma'am, once again for your enriching views. I also thank our host and moderator, Dr. Shirupa Roy, Head, Department of Chemistry, for her sincere, diligent, and methodical planning and execution of the event. I also thank our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Emma Serafine, HOD, Zoology, and UGC CPE coordinator, Dr. Devjani Roy, HOD, Geography. I extend my deep sense of gratitude to the management of Nirmala College, members of IQAC, faculty of Nirmala College, and all the participants of this program. Thank you, one and all present here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Afreen. Thank you, sister. Thank you, Dr. Shreya. And thanks, sincere thanks to all the IQAC members and to all the participants for joining us in this session and for the live stream also. We will be posting the Google form link for that will be a feedback attendance form for all of you. And it will be posted after this session is just going to over, and you just need to fill it up and submit it, and that will be counted as your attendance. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, one and all. With this, with your permission, Sister Principal, I would like to conclude the session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya.
Next session is at 3.
Yes, next session, the second session will be at 3 o'clock. So requesting all the participants to kindly join us at 2:30. The meeting room will open at 2:30 and the entry will be allowed till 3 o'clock. And requesting all those participants who could not enter, who won't be able to enter in the second session also in the meeting room, to join us in the live stream. All the links have already been shared. Thank you, everybody. We have shared the Google form link here on Zoom, and we'll be sharing the same on live stream also. Kindly fill it up and submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.